Bet you didn't know that the US government once staged photographs, literally staged them, to decide what race Mexicans were. Not based on science, not based on culture, not based on ancestry, but based on political convenience. This is the hidden story of how Mexicans and indigenous people from Mexico were photographed, mislabeled, categorized, recategorized, and erased in the federal record. This is the racial identity conspiracy hiding inside America's archives. Let's open the file. From 1850 to 1940, the U.S. Census changed its racial categories constantly. This is documented in Harvard's Racial Reorganization and the U.S. Census, 1850 to 1930, as well as multiple decades of the U.S. Census enumerator instructions. Mexicans moved through labels like white, Mexican, 1930 only, Indian, mulatto, mixed race, other. Sometimes the same family changed racial categories between one census and the next. Why? Because race wasn't scientific, it was bureaucratic improvisation. And the census couldn't figure out where to place indigenous Mexicans from Texas, Baja California, and Louisiana, such as the Yaqui, Raramuri, Noa, Zapotec, Maya, Mixteca, etc., the Mestizo Mexicans, the Afro-Mexicans, the Mexican migrants, or the Mexican Americans born in the U.S.
So instead of confronting the complexity, they decided to manufacture racial clarity. That's where the racial typology photographs came in. Between the 1890s and the 1930s, anthropologists and government agents created thousands of racial type photographs. Check out the Smithsonian Anthropological Archives, Bureau of American Ethnology Collections, Franz Boas Era Anthropology Field Notes, and even Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, training albums. These were not casual portraits. They were staged, posed, lit like laboratory specimens, labeled with racial categories, and used as evidence in government training.
Here's where the conspiracy becomes clear. The U.S. government didn't just want to classify race. They wanted to control it, because racial categorization determined who could immigrate, who could naturalize, who could own property, who could vote, who counted as white under the law, and who could be deported. To learn more, look up the Naturalization Act of 1906, citizenship restricted to white persons. Immigration Act of 1924, restricted non-white immigration, and even multiple court cases in Texas and California treating Mexicans as non-white.
So depending on the political winds, Mexicans needed to be white to maintain diplomatic ties with Mexico, or non-white to justify discrimination, segregation, and deportation, or indigenous when the state needed labor but wanted to deny civil rights, or ambiguously classified when convenient for employers. In other words, race wasn't discovered, it was invented, and photography became the illusion of scientific legitimacy. Here's the human part most people never hear about. Anthropologists and census agents often paid Mexican subjects a few coins to pose for photos. Sometimes they wore plain clothes, sometimes in stage indigenous apparel, sometimes in ways meant to exaggerate racial traits. According to archival notes, subjects were lined up against blank walls, told how to angle their faces, sometimes stripped to show bone structure, cataloged without names, labeled with racial terms they never chose. Some were indigenous Mexicans from Sonora, Chihuahua, Veracruz, Yucatan, Oaxaca. Some were Mestizo railroad workers. Some were migrant families crossing the border. Some were literally school children. These people weren't racial data. They were human beings. Yet their images were used to build racial myths that impacted millions.
Here's the conspiracy that matters. Thousands of these racial-type photographs survive, but almost none of them include names, villages, family histories, ages, consent records, payment notes, tribal affiliations. The U.S. preserved the images, but erased the people. They kept the types, but disappeared the identities. Erasure isn't accidental. Erasure is strategic. The camera is supposed to capture the truth. But in the hands of the US government, it became a tool of racial storytelling and racial control. Mexicans didn't fit white America's categories. So white America invented new categories, staged the photos, and rewrote the story. The Mexican Indian type label was no longer a caption. It was a category of suspicion. This fed directly into one of the darkest episodes in US history. The Mexican repatriation, 1931 to 1934, where over 1 million Mexicans, many US citizens, were deported. If the government could manipulate identity at the level of photography, what else could they manufacture? Stay curious, stay questioning, and most of all, keep watching Conspiracy Real List on YouTube to learn more historical facts white America doesn't want you to know.